What's up, bitches? It's me, Angelo, your boy. Welcome to episode 89 of Dank times Danker Thoughts. It's been a hot minute since I last talked to y'all. I believe it's been over a week since I did one of these. You know, I try to do at least one and a half pods a week, but sometimes shit hits the fan and shit don't get done. Since the last recording, yeah, things have been kind of hectic here and there. Some family stuff. I haven't been sleeping so good consistently. And yeah, just been busy with some other things, you know. So I've been making a episode list of things to talk about for about a week, and it just keeps growing and growing. So I may actually have to break this up into two podcasts, but we'll see how we go here. So what has everyone been up to? I just got to have dinner with one of my good friends and staunch listener of the podcast. Well, to save her identity, I'll just call her Queen Limoncello. She gave me a lot of shit because I don't know how to pronounce Italian words that I should know how to pronounce. I always thought the cherries were called maraschino, but I guess that is a bit Frenchy, and those are Italian. So I guess the correct way is maraschino. Maraschino? Maraschino. I don't know. Just give me a fucking cherry in my drink. What the fuck you want from me? Anyway, she was visiting from California only for a couple days. And I said, well, let's go have some dinner. And I picked a place in Renton that I have heard nothing but positive, glowing reviews. And when I look at the menu, I was impressed. It is a French-Italian fusion restaurant. I'm not going to say the name of the restaurant because you'll figure out why. So I heard good things. The menu looked good. It's probably the classiest place in Renton. Some of you may not know Renton, Washington. It's not a shithole, but it's not exactly a mecca of culture, if you catch my drift. It's, just kind of blasé. Not much happening. So she was kind of surprised that we weren't going to an areas known for their cuisine, a Seattle, a Bellevue, a Kirkland. But I said, look, you're staying in Renton. I'll be in Renton already for that day. I took a day off work, same day, to take the old man to an eye doctor appointment. That killed the whole day. So again, I've been busy doing shit. We go to this restaurant. First off, parking was a bitch, but I can't really fault the restaurant. It's not its fault. However, for the prices they are asking for their food, apps, and drinks, I expected minimum A- product. I spent $13 or $14 on each drink. I bought 5 drinks between us. All 5 drinks were C+, B- at the best. And the limoncello that I had with my after the meal, instead of a dessert, I wanted a limoncello because I thought they have to be known for limoncellos. This is an Italian-French restaurant. It was the sugariest, syrupiest, sweetest sludge. It gave me a headache instantly, and it fucked up my insides. It gave me shit dreams. I had bad sleep, and I got gas and sweating. This shit fucked me up. I'd rather have been roofied. I'd rather be taken to a Scientology church and have my spectrum looked at, whatever the fuck they look at you when they attach those prods to your nuts and shock you and try to read out whatever your internal sayings are. You know what I'm talking about, how the Scientologists test you. The joke ain't working. So then I thought, okay, the drinks are subpar, so the food has got to be good. The food was good. However, for the price, I expected more quantity. Now, I understand when you go to these nice restaurants, the size of the portion is somewhat smaller, but the good places, that's still a good, adequate size, and it fills you up. You're not hungry. After my meal, and after my 3 drinks, I was still hungry. I got home, and my stomach was like, hey, bitch, I want more. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to tell you how much I spent. It's none of y'all's business. But the amount of shit I'm going to get from one of my faithful listeners, because I talked up this shithole restaurant, and it was not adequate, to say the least. I mean, the conversation with her was great. We had a good time catching up and whatnot. No, that was fun. That was fun. I've been trying to get her to start her own podcast. She's has a really good take on things, and she's funny, you know. I don't know why she doesn't do it. Anyway, besides that, I've been catching up on some movies. I completely spaced. There was a few more movies that I want to watch and I should have talked about before the Oscars. And the one that I still have yet to see is Nightmare Alley. Oh, and there's another one. Come on, with Joaquin Phoenix. And I guess if I want to torture myself, I'll watch the new West Side Story. Although I'd rather get fucking waterboarded with apple cider vinegar. I fucking hate musicals. But it's supposed to be excellent, so I'll give West Side Story 20 minutes of my time, and then I'll take it from there. But I did see two movies recently that one of them is going to get Oscar attention. The other one probably not so much, although I think it should, at least for screenwriting. I'll do the small one first. I watched the Nicolas Cage movie Pig. I thought I'd watched it already, but I didn't. I was mistaken. It's a very short film. It's about an hour and a half long. It's about a kind of a recluse that lives in the Oregon forests. That's Nicolas Cage. And he lives with a truffle pig. You know what a truffle pig is, don't you? Pigs that get truffles. You know what truffles are. They're like mushroom, fungi, shit that grows by trees. It's really good shit. It's in all the expensive restaurants and oils and foods. Go to Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. You see that shit everywhere, and you're going to pay a hefty premium on that shit. So it's a pretty small movie. And someone steals his pig, and then the movie kicks off. So it's him trying to figure out where the fuck happened to his pig. I'm not going to say anything more about it because it'd be kind of a spoiler. It was better than I thought, although some of my friends are saying, oh, it's the best film of 2021. That is wrong. Again, I don't normally say people's opinions are wrong. But to say Pig is the best movie of 2021, I want to smoke what you're smoking. It's a fun movie. It's easily my top 10 movies of 2021. And if I'm really thinking about it, maybe top 7. But number 1, wipe my ass with that opinion. Now, the other movie I watched, I expected a C+ movie, and baby, I got about an A-. Maybe a B+. No, yeah, it's between a B+ and an A-. That is The Last Duel. Now, the trailer made it look like a kind of a gladiator-esque movie but also throw in a little bit of adultery or something. Like, the trailer really didn't do a good job. The trailer was shit for what the movie actually was. So, in summary, The Last Duel follows... Well, the trailer doesn't hide this. It follows a rape. But what the trailer doesn't tell you is that the story of the rape is told through 3 protagonists in their own viewpoints of the events. All 3 of the main stars were excellent in the movie. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. I probably should have had it ready to go. Matt Damon, who... I've always thought Matt Damon was a pretty good actor, you know? I don't think he was one of the better actors out, but I thought he was pretty good. But lately, I've been seeing him in some pretty good roles, and he was excellent in this movie. Let's see, The Last... Not The Lady, The Last. Here it is. Adam Driver was the hottest hottie I've ever seen since Brad Pitt in Thelma and Louise. I can see why Adam Driver has fuckboy status, because those women I know think he's hot. And you look at Adam Driver and you're like, he kind of looks like a mix between a gargoyle and a mouse. But then you see him take his shirt off, and then he has facial hair and long Jesus-like hair, and you're like, oh, okay. Now I can totally see myself kissing his abs. Yeah, I get that. He was really good in it. Now, the woman, I've never seen her in anything before. Jodie Comer? I don't know. Comer. Where is she from? She's a British actress. Oh, I'm pronouncing it like she's French. What the fuck? What else is she in? Free Guy. I haven't seen that bullshit. Oh, she was in that Killing Eve show that I never watched. Well, apparently she was in one of the Star Wars movies. But whatever. This is her big role. It has to be. She was so good in it. I don't want to give too much away, but it is a period piece that takes place, I believe, in 13th century France, if I'm not mistaken. So it is kind of, you have to accept that Matt Damon, this Comer chick, and Adam Driver are playing Frenchmen. Oh, Ben Affleck has a little part in it as, not the king, but like the second in command. He was okay. But yeah, I will say that The Last Duel far, far, far surpassed my expectations for it. Again, I was expecting a C-plus movie. I would say it's probably top 5 movies of last year. I still say Belfast and Licorice Pizza are my top ones. But right behind it, I would put The Last Duel and some other films. So we will see what the rest holds. I still have to see Nightmare Alley and Come On, Come On. But Pig was a surprise hit too. But with that, I think we can move on to the NFL playoffs and see how your boy scored in the wild card round and his picks for the conference round that's coming up this weekend. Well, I don't know how y'all did on your wild card picks. I went 4-2, which is okay. I thought I was going to go 5-1, but the fucking Dallas Cowboys don't know how to spot the fucking ball. But I'm not a Cowboys fan, so they can go fuck themselves. So the 2 games I got wrong were the 2 games I was the most wary about. I was the most unsure about. I waited until really the day before the playoffs before I settled on Arizona over the Rams because I just thought Matt Stafford could not deliver. I thought maybe some of the older players on the Rams, like a Von Miller, were going to kind of show their age a little bit. And I just thought, Kyler Murray's young. And even though Arizona was shit in the bed the last few weeks of the season, they were such a good road team. And they were going to try to play hard because they just lost to us. But boy, was I wrong. Arizona got the shit kicked out of them. And that was the MO of the wild card round. Unfortunately, I was expecting some pretty intense, close games, which the only one really was the Cincinnati-Las Vegas game that came down to the wire, and it was within a touchdown. I think Cincinnati beat Las Vegas by 6. Technically, Dallas was driving to tie the game, but it was such a clusterfuck and that game wasn't ever really that close until the middle of the fourth quarter. So 2 NFC teams that I did not think would make it past the first round are now in it. The Rams and the 49ers. But who are my picks for this upcoming, not the conference championship, what the hell do they call the week before the championships? The quarterfinals? I don't know. The week before the championships. There's 4 games. So in the AFC, I'm going to pick both upsets, both road teams. I'm going to pick the Bengals over the Titans, and I think actually that game may actually end up being a blowout. Well, by a blowout, I mean more than 2 touchdown win. The Bills over the Chiefs. Now that one is tough because, the Patriots barely squeaked into the playoffs, much like the Pittsburgh Steelers barely got in, and the Philadelphia Eagles, and all 3 of those teams got their shit punched in. So I don't really know how Buffalo is going to play Kansas City. Kansas City is suspect on defense, and that Buffalo offense is money. Oh man, I don't know who I like more, Josh Allen or Joe Burrow. Oof, I wish the Seahawks had either one of them. But I think the Bills are just slightly better than the Chiefs. Not much. So I'm going with the Bengals and Bills. And in the NFC, I'm switching gears and I'm taking both home teams. I'm taking the Packers over the 49ers. Although the 49ers have beaten the Packers in some amazing playoff games previously. But when I look at the Packers and I look at the 49ers, the Packers are just a better team. And when it comes down to it, who are you going to trust as your quarterback? Aaron Rodgers or Jimmy Garoppolo? Now, I would kiss Jimmy Garoppolo before I would kiss Aaron Rodgers, but that's not going to determine who's going to win on Sunday. You know what I'm saying? And the other game, that's the one that I'm 50-50 on. Well, 51-49, because I am going to pick the Tampa Bay Bucks over the Rams. Even though the Rams beat them in the regular season. But I think that's going to give Tom Brady a little bit of fuel. And he's going to play damn hard to get back into the championship game. So my picks again are the Bills, Bengals, Packers, and Bucks. And the game that I'm the most unsure about is the Bucks beating the Rams. The game that I'm the most positive about is the Bengals over the Titans. Only time will tell. But anyway, let's move on to some news because I haven't talked on a podcast in a while, so I got a lot of news to cover. I'm going to try to do it fast. Let's call this Thunder and Lightning round of news. Before I start that, though, I did talk about last week how I couldn't remember what the Bernie Sanders interview was, where he really laid down the hammer and really told the viewers that it doesn't matter if you're polling bad in a state. The president should go, or someone should go and talk to people, talk to the working class in West Virginia, go to Arizona, go to Colorado, go to places where Trump may have carried the state by 30 points. It doesn't fucking matter. Go there and talk to these people. And that interview was on Seth Meyers. Surprisingly, for some reason I thought it was on a political talk show, but it was on Seth Meyers about a week ago. So I wanted to play it, but I just don't think we're going to have time on this podcast. So I wanted to at least give it a shout out. So if you want to watch a good interview, and I think Seth Meyers is the best late night host out. Colbert is a cunt. Fallon's a turd. Kimmel, he's kind of a turd as well. And who's the British guy who sings and dances? It's too much for me. That's a headache. That's a headache for an hour. Carpool karaoke, go fuck yourself. He is pretty funny though. But yeah, Seth Meyers overall is the best. Before him, my favorite was Conan, but who gives a fuck? I wanted to give a shout out. Seth Meyers, Bernie Sanders interview. Go take a listen if you care. If you don't, whatever. I tried. But let's get down to the news. Before I go into Biden's insane, completely out of touch, dare I say senile speech that he gave, I did want to say some good news. Well, good news if you're a progressive or a somewhat left, well, I wouldn't even say left-leaning, because I feel like the progressives really are the majority of the country. I could be out of touch on that. I feel like if you could go to any 50 states in this beautiful nation we call America and talk to Republicans, independents, libertarians, LGBTQ, QAnon, gay, straight, Indian, Mexican, it doesn't matter. Talk to anybody. The mass majority of people are going to want a higher minimum wage. They're going to want more time off for family-related things like new babies and stuff. They want more vacation, more unions. They want Medicare for all, for the most. I mean, all of those things, I believe, poll in the high 50s, even low 60s. So to say that those are socialist, far-left ideas is basically 30 years behind. The mass majority of people want progressive, lefty, whatever you want to call it. They want those things. They agree with them. They may not like who's saying them. They may not trust them, but they want them. And that's where you kind of have to say, well, don't hate the game, hate the player. You know what I'm saying? I fucked that up. My point being, to say that some of these progressive ideas is just too wacky to go in today's America, you're out of touch, much like the president, on the mass majority of things. But anyway, before I get into that, let me pull up a good article that's going to give us some hope. The U.S. presidential election party preferences among voters age 18 to 29, basically Gen X. Generation replacement will not be kind to Trump's Republican Party. Polling director at the Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics said the mass majority, something over 60% of Gen Zs, lean left, Democrat, progressive. They are the most diverse and most educated generation in history. I'm talking about Gen Z. 70 million Americans, by the way, encompass Gen Z. And when you look at voters' turnout, it's one of the highest in the country that are not senior citizens. So 53% of voters 18 to 29 either have voted or plan on voting. Oh, I'm sorry, this is have voted through 2020. So 53%. So what's the big picture? They say that 5 key events during the last 20 years has kind of shaped their progressive left-leaning ideology. The first one was the Occupy Wall Street movement, which was led by millennials, which opened up discussions about inequality, became political drivers as Zoomers came of age, and they saw this. They saw how their parents, Gen X, were fucking suffering while grandpa and grandma were doing just fine. They could not understand why. So thankfully, us millennials did something about it. The second issue, it just says Donald Trump. So everything about Donald Trump, they said, holy shit. And he won. Good God, it's up to us. The third was the Parkland, Florida high school shooting in the March of Our Lives movement. I get so upset talking about this. But the fact that we still have not passed any gun laws in my lifetime that really mean shit is a real stain on this country. But anyway, moving on. 17-year-old Darnella Fraser's use of her iPhone to record the murder of George Floyd. I mean, I feel like that affected every generation, but when you're young and already full of empathy and compassion, but also white-hot rage, that's understandable. And the millennials are here with you. You may still call us boomers, which, fuck you if you call me a boomer. Bitch, I'm 35. I have feelings. And the fifth was Greta Thunberg's climate strike. Now, I like Greta. I don't know if we should be doing policy from a teenager's opinion. However, her opinions tend to be accurate and correct, so we need to listen to these young people, my point. So, if you're a Republican and you see this, don't be afraid or don't get angry. Don't start blaming the youth for fucking up the country, whatever. Be like, well, why do they think this way? Why? And if you can't look at some of these issues and see the other side of things, then maybe you're just, I won't say you're a lost cause, because I have hope for everyone. Well, mostly everyone. But yeah, do some self-reflection. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, why? Why? Why is it that Democrats win every popular vote in the last, almost 20, 30 years, I believe? I think the last Republican doing the popular vote was, I think, Bush's dad, if I'm not mistaken. But yet we've had 12 years of Republican control. 8 George W. Jr. and 4 years of Trump. During that time frame, they did not win the popular vote. And you wonder why the Electoral College, getting rid of it, is seen as a very popular thing to do by millennials and Gen Z. And why the only people who don't understand are the ones that are still kind of out of touch with how things are, the boomers. And I think Gen X is 50-50 on. But anyway, let's turn our attentions to the wild press conference. Well, not really a press conference. He's the president. But anyway. Now, I don't disagree with the first thing he said, which is, what do Republicans stand for? What do they stand for? I agree, Joe. What do they stand for? They stand for the military-industrial complex, but so do the Democrats. They stand for lowering taxes for the wealthy and the elite. Democrats are 50-50 on that one. And they're for really doing the opposite of whatever the Democrats want to do at any given time. So besides helping the rich and just giving more money to the military, they don't really stand for much else. But they basically go online or open up the newspaper and say, okay, what are Democrats talking about? We're going to do the opposite of that, and we're going to say a lot of stupid religious shit so we know that we'll never lose the evangelicals. If you're an evangelical and you vote Republican, I hope your God comes down and bitch slaps you a few times, because there is no God in any religion that would look at the Republican Party right now and be like, yes, this is what I want all of my followers to follow, regardless of what religion it is. It's insane to me that anyone who knows anything about Christianity, that's what I was raised in, but I did take a few theology classes. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in religion at all or religious studies at all, but I have a very low framework of most major religions. But I am slightly high, so maybe I won't go over all of the religions. But my point being, any evangelical Christian thinking that the Jesus of old would come down in 2022, look at the Republican voters and the base and say, yes, these are truly the people that are correctly following my faith, my religion. These are my people. No, he would kick the shit out of you like he did the moneylenders in the church. But anyway, I digress. So I agree with you, Joe. The Republicans don't stand for much. However, what you said before that is what truly shocked me. He said he was surprised that Republicans are not willing to work with him. He thought they didn't work with Obama because he was Obama. Well, I'm Joe Biden. They're surely going to work with me. Again, how delusional, how out of touch do you have to be to not look at the U.S. political spectrum over the last really since Clinton? Democrats and Republicans have been at each other's throats. They rarely work together, again, besides passing military budgets. So, did you really not understand what was happening during your 8 years as vice president to Barack Obama? You honestly thought you would become president and think, well, they're going to work with me because I'm Joe Biden. I'm a white guy. They didn't want to work with the black guy. I get it. He was young. And did I mention he was black? Now, I'm not saying Joe Biden said that. I'm just saying, are you out of your mind, Joe? Come on. So, you've wasted the first year of your presidency trying to work with the party who basically told you before you even ran as president, we're not going to work with any Democrat ever on anything. Bye. And Donald Trump's fucking banshee ghost still lingers over everything. So you really thought that the party where something like 40% believe that Donald Trump is still the rightful president, that they were going to work with you? Jesus Christ, man, what an embarrassment. And so you may ask yourself, okay, Angelo, you proved your point. But truly, it's the Republicans' fault. Joe Biden has done nothing as president in the last 10 months. Even the infrastructure bill got whittled down from, $6 trillion down to fucking whatever it was. Which, again, it's some good things are in there. But it's like they offered you $100 and you said, no, I'll take a $5 bill instead. So, goddamn, Joe. I mean, are you that dumb? Or is this part of your master plan to say, well, I really don't want to pass any of these progressive, left-leaning, basically what 60% of the country wants. I'm not going to do any of those things. I'm just going to sit back and still talk about Trump and how he's, blah, 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 blah. It's all part of his master plan to do nothing. I don't know, man. And just win on fear. I don't know. If that's your game plan, it's a fucking dumb one. And so you asked me, all right, Angelo, what could he have done? He didn't have any Republican support. And plus, there's those cinemas and the mansions of the world that will fuck over anything and everything they can get their hands on because they're basically covert Republicans. Well, okay. What you can do, what you should have done from day fucking one when you saw what a thorn in your side those two were going to be, start making campaign ads, play them in those districts where they come from, and fucking hit them. Every time they vote down something that's going to help the lives of their constituents, go to West Virginia, go to Arizona and say, hey, I'm President Joe Biden. Hey, remember how I kind of did okay on COVID and I gave you some money? That was pretty good, right? Well, I'm trying to raise the minimum wage. Well, Sinema and Manchin said no. I also want to have like a $6 trillion infrastructure bill, which is going to do these things. But they said no. I want to do all these things, but they keep saying no. So what I want you to do, voters, is vote these fucking assholes out. Now, Joe, you're not going to say fucking assholes. I get it. You're an old man. You probably say, weird cahooties or something. You'd make up some old man phrase. Although it'd be funny if he says jabronis. And that way they have a little bit of fire under their ass. If you do it now, it's not going to mean anything because your approval rating is anywhere from 33% to 43%, which is a big difference, but not much. So I feel like a 33% approval rating Biden going to Arizona next month and saying Sinema's the problem, it's not going to carry much weight. You should have done that 6-7 months ago, Joe. Again, why did the Biden administration not call me? I have ideas, Joe. They're not any worse than what you've already done. And the third thing he could have done, do some goddamn executive orders. Just do that. And when they went through that budget parliamentarian bitch who voted no on a few of their things, do what the Republicans did, fired her, hired a new one that is going to approve it. Yeah, you're playing dirty, but when it's for a good cause and it's not going to hurt anyone, you can play dirty. The Republicans did it. Fuck, man, you should have done it. So anyway, technically, yes, Joe, the Republicans stand for nothing, but neither kind of do you. But anyway, he also kind of put the nail in his coffin when he said he still plans to run in 2024. Joe, you got to get that approval rating to at least 46, 48% before you do any of that bullshit. So you got to get at least a 10-point swing, baby, before you can even think about running again. So he says he's going to do that, and he still says Kamala Harris will be his running mate. She has a worse approval rating than he does. I don't have enough oxygen in my lungs to explain to you that Kamala Harris is a cancer on this administration. So, Joe, again, I don't know who is running your campaign in 2024. I don't know who's giving you the news stories or giving you polling data. I don't know who's running your team. They're not telling you what's actually happening in this country. Ugh. And then when you thought, well, this press conference, this speech can't get any worse, he then said Russia is likely to invade Ukraine, which scared fucking everybody. And then he said, well, if it's a light incursion, probably we won't do anything. But if it's a major incursion, we're going to do something. So he kind of flubbed everything, and he had to apologize a few days later. But again, why didn't he just say it's a United Nations issue? We're going to get with our allies. America is not some lone wolf that's going to go in and tell another country what to do. But we're going to stand with our allies, which is the Ukraine. And we're going to try to diplomatically talk to Vladimir Putin and see if we can't come to terms with something. Instead, he said something along these lines. I think he still does not want any full-blown war, number one. Number two, do I think he'll test the West, test the United States and NATO as significantly as he can? Yes, I think he will. But I think he'll pay a serious and dear price for it that he doesn't think now will cost him what is going to cost him, and I think he'll regret having done it. My guess is he will move in. He has to do something. Come on, Joe. It's worth noting that Biden said that Russia will be held accountable if it invades, but added it would depend on what it actually does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and we end up having to fight about what to do and not to do, etc. But if Russia launches a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, this would be a disaster for Russia. Asked later if he was effectively giving Russia permission to make a small incursion, Biden stressed the importance of NATO having a unified response. Probably should have said that first. And noted that differences amongst the bloc's members do exist. If it is something significantly short of a significant invasion, or not even significant, major military forces coming in, for example, it's one thing to determine. Joe, you don't give examples. Don't give examples. Determine if they continue to use cyber efforts, we can respond the same way with cyber. There are differences in NATO as what countries are willing to do, depending on what happens, the degree to which they are able to go. So Biden's suggestion that there may be devastating sanctions over a minor incursion by Russia is sure to spark alarm in the Ukraine, where top officials have been pleading with the U.S. to impose sanctions now to avoid that very scenario. And after this speech, Ukraine came out and saying, for the love of God, America, don't give Russia an excuse. Russia can now invade and say, well, this is a minor incursion. Ask the U.S. president. He defined it. Oh, so, and again, Biden has since apologized for flubbing up, but you should have known. You've been serving this country as a senator, or you've been a federal employee in one way or the other for something like 40 or 50 years, Joe. You should know how the game is played. But anyway, so speaking of the Republicans, and what do they actually stand for? Nothing. But we know who the two top dogs are. The shocker, it's Donald Trump. That's not a surprise. But the other one was one that I've said a long time ago, and that is DeSantis from Florida. And over the last week and a half, they've been at each other like a couple of bitches. And I really don't... I do know what's going to happen. I think Ron DeSantis once hit his high watermark for an approval rating. I think his approval rating of the last few months has gone down. In fact, I think that's happening in Florida as well, but overall in the country. Donald Trump's popularity, I don't think has changed too much amongst Republican voters. I really don't. So what I think is going to happen is you are going to have not a wide field of contenders, but you're going to have Ted Cruz, Rubio, DeSantis. You may even have a wild card like Tucker Carlson or some shit, and Trump, of course. You're going to have some batshit wild political battles there. But what I think is going to happen is they're all going to realize, well, none of us can beat Trump. And just like they did in 2016, they're going to basically fall on their swords. And DeSantis, being the leader of the group, I think that DeSantis is a solid 2 in this country behind Trump on the Republican ballot. He's going to lay down and just let Trump do whatever he wants. He's going to ravish him, if you will. But DeSantis, now this is from Forbes magazine here. DeSantis says he regrets not opposing Trump administration's lockdown calls as tensions grow with the ex-president. So they have been going at each other for a little bit here. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said on a podcast episode that aired Friday, one of the biggest regrets in his office was not speaking much louder against the Trump administration's calls for lockdown in the early days of the pandemic. DeSantis is a big no lockdown kind of guy, with the comments coming just days after the former President Trump appeared to label DeSantis gutless. Now, Trump didn't say DeSantis by name, but it was pretty obvious he was talking about DeSantis when he called him gutless. DeSantis said on the conservative podcast, Ruthless, he believes Trump administration officials, like Dr. Anthony Fauci, panicked as COVID-19 quickly spread in the U.S. in March of 2020, leading to calls for lockdowns. Oh, fuck you, buddy. Everybody was losing their shit in March of 2020, even you, motherfucker. Tensions are reportedly growing between Trump and DeSantis, who was one of Trump's most vocal and powerful supporters during his presidency, over DeSantis not ruling out a 2024 presidential run if Trump is also on the race. Trump said in an interview that aired Tuesday that politicians who don't disclose whether they've received a COVID vaccine booster shot are gutless, appearing to take a jab at DeSantis, who's refused to say whether he's received a booster. So who gives a fuck? So you now can put the unvaccinated into the Republican base. I don't think a large percentage of the country is completely unvaccinated and never plan on it. It's got to be small. So the Republicans don't have the greatest people as voters. Don't be offended if you're a Republican and you listen to this podcast. I'm talking about the unvaccinated and the evangelicals. Are there worse people than those Christian unvaccinated? Maybe. Okay, here's an opponent to that. If I had to choose who's worse between an unvaccinated evangelical Christian, I would probably say a staunchly non-gender, non-binary, atheist vegan that's covered head to toe in tats and piercings and crazy hair. I don't know who I would rather listen to. I really don't. Those two, I think that's a good reality TV show. Get those two people in a room, and they're sitting at a table, and then through the ceiling, like a card falls through, and the topic says abortion. And then you hit record, and those two just lose their fucking mind, and you just record it, and you charge $20 a pop, and I think people will watch it. I think I just sold the next great Fox TV show. I'm dying. Anyway, let's take a break from the news here, because I need a break, and then I'll get back into the news. Well, look who's making yet another appearance on my podcast. Senator Jon Ossoff from Georgia. Come on down. I think this is like the third week in a row. I'm really, really ready to dick this man down. He is looking to be the future of the Democrat Party if he can keep his nose clean. And I'm not talking from fentanyl-laced coke. If he wants to do that shit, more power to him. In fact, I think that would humanize him. And who wouldn't want a president to say, yeah, I done coke and I fucked prostitutes back in the day. Who gives a fuck? Because I was cool. I feel like the Trump voters would be like, okay, I know he's a Democrat, but that's pretty goddamn cool. Anyway, senators propose bill to ban corporate PACs. Holy Jesus. And these are the Democrats that came up with this? Senators Mark Kelly, Democrat from Arizona, former astronaut, who also I'm liking more and more. I was a little 50-50 on him because he was against nixing the filibuster, but he then since changed his mind. So I liked that, and I like this bill. He is co-signing the bill with Jon Ossoff, will soon propose a bill prohibiting for-profit corporations from establishing and managing political action committees. The introduction of the Ban Corporate PACs Act, what a lovely name, gets straight to the point, comes amid heightened scrutiny on Capitol Hill regarding money in politics, including efforts to bar companies from influencing political campaigns and federal elections. It would likely face a court challenge and First Amendment concerns, of course. But as Axios' Lachlan Marquet points out, while corporate PACs are getting huge attention amid bipartisan task towards political populism, they actually provide a relatively small share of the money fueling federal political contests. Well, if that's true, that's cool. Both parties are seeing success through the grassroots fundraising and tailoring strategies accordingly. In addition to banning for-profit corporations from establishing and managing PACs, the bill would also eliminate the ability of for-profit corporations or PACs to solicit contributions from corporate stockholders. It would also require existing corporate PACs affected by the act to be terminated and funds be fully dispersed within 1 year after its enactment. Ooh, baby. Both senators are newly elected and face challenging political environments in their home states. Kelly and Ossoff believe PACs are often established by corporations to influence policy. They also believe the nature of their creation allow them to skirt the law by making contributions to political candidates as higher legal limit than those placed on contributions for individuals. The bill comes after Kelly and Ossoff recently introduced a bill barring members of Congress, their spouses, and dependent family members from buying and selling stocks while the members hold office. I talked about that in the last podcast. Again, another reason why I like these two. The bill is similar to other Republican efforts to limit or ban members of Congress from trading stocks, something House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says he's interested in if Republicans win the majority. Well, you could still do it now. However, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Thursday discounted the need for both bills. Of course she did, saying she's always in favor of trusting our members. She added that insider trading is a matter for the Justice Department. I'm going to puke in my mouth. So, another reason why I'm a huge fan of John Ossoff. And local politics here. Fred Meyer, QFC workers struggle in Washington to make ends meet, new report shows. A new survey of more than 10,000 unionized Kroger grocery workers in the western United States find that 78% sometimes struggle to afford basic necessities like food and shelter. Let me read that again. 78% struggle to afford basic necessities like food and shelter. Nearly 1/3 were from Washington, where Kroger owns Fred Meyer and QFC stores. The survey gives a glimpse into workers' views at one of Washington's largest private employers, a company with nearly 22,000 workers at 119 sites in Washington, and whose stores are effectively known as Freddy's or Fred Meyer. And it comes at a time when record work turnover across various industries and a 40-year high in inflation have left workers with once more leverage and greater needs than in recent memory. More than 3/4 of those surveyed said that they suffered from food insecurity as defined by the federal government, meaning they couldn't afford balanced health meals. Half of those, 38% of all workers surveyed, said they had very low food security or sometimes went hungry. 14% of the surveyed workers said they are homeless or have been homeless in the last year. The survey was conducted by Economic Roundtable, a California-based nonprofit research group that has frequently worked with the California municipal government. It bills itself as the largest independent survey of retail workers that has ever been conducted in the United States. Kroger is the second largest grocer in the country after Walmart. The survey, released last week, got responses from more than 3,100 workers in Washington. The numbers among only Washington respondents were broadly similar to the larger results. 75% reported being food insecure, 38% had very low food security, and 13% reported being homeless now or recently. That is crazy! So, fuck you, Kroger, for raising your prices, taking away the hero pay, paying your CEO millions and millions of dollars. Let me pull up what these cocksuckers do. Here it is. Kroger paid its CEO $22 million. Meanwhile, 63% of Kroger supermarket workers say they can't afford basic expenses. We just went over that. 8,000 Colorado workers at nearly 80 Kroger-owned grocery stores just went on strike. Now is the time to boycott Kroger. And that was from Robert Reich. So anyway, fuck you, Kroger. And now onto some lighter news and whatnot. A wild story. I mean, just hear this headline. Alec Baldwin sued by family of U.S. Marine killed in Afghanistan. Say fucking what? The family of a U.S. Marine killed in a suicide bombing in Afghanistan last summer has filed a defamation lawsuit against actor Alec Baldwin, accusing Baldwin of calling them insurrectionists on Instagram after the dead Marine's sister allegedly participated in the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. The lawsuit was filed in Wyoming by the two sisters and the widow of Lance Corporal Riley McCollum on Monday. McCollum's family said Baldwin's Instagram comments were false, outrageous, defamatory, irresponsible, vindictive, and caused and continue to cause plaintiffs severe emotional distress. Jesus, wrap it up. We don't need all of those adjectives, bitch. So then you say, well, okay, let's back up, Angelo. Who the fuck is this McCollum guy, and what did Alec Baldwin say? First, who is McCollum? Riley McCollum was among the 13 service members that were killed in an attack at the Kabul International Airport last August as the U.S. troops withdrew from Afghanistan amid the end of nearly a 2-decade war. The actor donated $5,000 to Janae, but it's spelled in a real white trash way. Jiennah. I bet it's pronounced Janae, but they had to spell like Jinnah. Anyway, the actor previously donated $5,000 to Ginny McCollum and her newborn daughter as a tribute to a fallen soldier after Riley's death. So he dies. Alec Baldwin gives you $5,000 as a tribute to the fallen soldier. So far, so good. This is like a Disney movie. Earlier this month, Baldwin commented on Royce McCollum's Instagram post, this is the sister of the dead Marine, of her sharing a throwback photo of her in a crowd full of pro-Trump supporters in front of the Washington Monument on January 6th, the suit said. Alec Baldwin then responded on the message. Are you the same woman that I sent money to for your sister husband's who was killed during the Afghanistan exit, Baldwin wrote under McCollum's post. The suit also said that the actor privately messaged McCollum, accusing her of being an insurrectionist and told her to own it. When I sent the money for your late brother out of real respect for his services to this country, I didn't know you were a January 6th rioter, Baldwin said in one of the messages. Protesting is perfectly legal in the country, and I've already had my sit down with the FBI. Thanks, have a nice day, McCollum replied to Baldwin, according to the lawsuit. The lawsuit also alleges that Baldwin reposted McCollum's photo, adding Royce received hostile, aggressive, hateful messages from Baldwin's followers within minutes of him reposting it. The McCollum family have accused Baldwin of defamation, invasion of privacy, and negligence, and is seeking $25 million in damages. Well, boo fucking who, McCollums? Now, I'm sorry for your loss. I remember that airport attack as we were trying to get out of Afghanistan. That is horrific, as going to Afghanistan was initially, but we're not talking about that. So it sure seems to me that the McCollum family is sour grapes. First off, you're a mook for going to the January 6th insurrection, for believing that it was going to work. So again, I know that you're one of Trump's loving low IQ people. So you would have thought that, well, you know, I know Trump voters really hate Alec Baldwin. You know, they hate most people in Hollywood, but they really, truly hate Alec Baldwin, probably above most. I know Colbert's up there, but they hold him with such hate. He gave you $5,000, which I'm sure helped you with the funeral expenses. So if he's such a hateful man, why would he help pay some respect, some financial respect to your family? And so then you're shocked when you do something stupid, post photos of you at January 6th. I mean, if I was in January 6th, I'd have my phone turned the fuck off. In fact, I wouldn't even bring a phone. I would have put that shit in the microwave, exploded it, then thrown the microwave in a dump, baby. So I don't think this is going anywhere, but I just thought how shitty the last few months have been for Alec Baldwin. Killed a couple people, now you're getting sued by an insurrectionist for $25 million after you gave the family $5,000 after their, dare I say, hero son died. So I'm pulling for you on this, Alec Baldwin. I'm pulling for you. But with that, I think we can start to wrap up here. Unfortunately, we lost two more Great, great people this last week and a half. These two celebrities, actor, stand-up comedian, meant a lot to me. And the two are Louis Anderson and Meatloaf. Now, Louis Anderson, I was introduced to his daytime television show. Oh, what was it called? Life with Louis. It ran from 95 to 98. And I don't know why, but probably because it had kind of Bobby's World-esque humor, but with Louis Anderson's actual style of humor, which I got into later in life, and I just became just a big fan of his. And it's terrible that we've lost two giant figures in stand-up comedy the last couple weeks, in Bob Saget and Louis Anderson. And speaking personally, both of those men did a lot for my childhood, and they were one of the few people that I kept following after my childhood. They kept popping up in stand-up comedy specials and movies and television. My point being, he always was kind of relevant in my life, as with Bob Saget. And when he was cast as Christine Baskets on the television show Baskets, that's really when I said to myself, this guy is much more than just a comedian. This guy is an actor. I mean, a talented actor. And I believe I think he won some Emmys, or I know he was nominated at least. And then I saw him pop up in another one of my favorite shows, Search Party. And he kept up with stand-up comedy. And I guess the reason I liked Louis Anderson so much was that he just reminded me, in his style of humor and his delivery, he reminded me of my mother's side of my family, because he just talked like them. My mother's side of the family are middle America Baptist farmers from Montana and Missouri, okay? And where was Louis Anderson from? I want to say he was from Minnesota. Just going on the top of my head here. St. Paul, Minnesota. Damn, I hate being right all the time. A broken clock is right twice a day, people. So I'm going to miss you, Louis Anderson. You reminded me of my mother's family, and when you were cast as Mother Baskets, you reminded me a lot of some of my aunts and a little bit of my mother. So I don't believe in a quote-unquote God. I am agnostic, but I hope, if there is an afterlife, I hope Louis Anderson is there with Bob Saget, just shooting the shit, telling new jokes, having some good times. And the other death that hit hard for me is the singer, actor, Meatloaf. He was born Michael or Marvin Lee Aday. He goes by Michael or Marvin, but everyone knows him by Meatloaf. Of course, if you don't know who the singer Meatloaf is, he released 3 classic hard rock albums. The big one, Bat Out of Hell and Bat Out of Hell 2. He was in some amazing movies, including Rocky Horror Picture Show, Fight Club, I mean, just to name a few. I mean, I'm looking at his filmography. It's pretty good. It's pretty deep. And, of course, he was on a shitload of TV shows. And, oh, shit, he was even on WWE. You know, I could sit here all day and talk to you about the career accomplishments of Meatloaf and the massive success he had on the screen and on music. But he hit hard for me because my father loved Meatloaf. And so he listened to a lot of Meatloaf around the house. I started to listen to a lot of Meatloaf as a kid, and I started to kind of latch on to a lot of music my father liked, and Meatloaf was near the top. So I, in my own time, started to listen to his music, and some of his lyrics really hit home with me. And I realized he was in movies, and that's when I was introduced to Rocky Horror Picture Show, which was one of the wildest things I'd ever seen at that time of my life. I think I must have been 13 or 12 or something. And the movie's fucking awesome. He's great in it. I even went as his character from Rocky Horror Picture Show as for Halloween a couple years ago, to tell you how much I'm a fan of his character, Eddie. They made a TV movie about Meatloaf, and I did not know what a hard childhood he had, as being a fat kid from Texas with an abusive father, just getting beat up on physically and mentally. And I could see why that affected my father so much, because my father was a fat kid who got physically and mentally beat up by his father. And of course, I connected to it because I saw myself as that fat kid. Although my father never physically abused me, he may have accidentally or not done a little bit of mental damage to me as well. But there was just a connection there between my father and I and Meatloaf. I mean, it's what's better than a father-son relationship over a classic rock, progressive rock, great lyricist, just always kept up with the times. Even when he covered songs, he covered a Celine Dion song and just somehow made it better. I mean, what's better than a father-son connection or something like that? And he was introduced to a whole new generation, of course, in Fight Club. Robert Paulson, Bob with the big titties. And yeah, maybe people soured on him later in life because of his friendship with Donald Trump and whatnot, but who gives a fuck? To me, and at least in my father's eyes, the guy is a legendary, badass, cool guy. And I still listen to his music. I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. Still a fucking awesome ballad. So, rest in peace, Meatloaf, again. And Louis Anderson. I mean, can we stop having some really great people dying? I mean, I know this is going to be the norm because we are saturated in pop culture with so many famous people. I mean, there's more famous people now than there ever has been. And so now that the old famous people are dying, we're going to have a windfall of classic rock stars dying, classic actors dying, authors, you name it. Because back in the day, there was like 10 famous people. And now there's literally thousands and thousands. And now the term celebrity or famous is stretched so far that people that are becoming famous through Vines and TikTok are now as famous as some actors. I don't know, man. It's a wild time. I'm not quite old man get off my lawn on all that yet, but Christ. Anyway, can we stop having cool people die? Can we start taking out some famous trash people? Okay? Let's move on here. Oh, actually, I think we can close out. Nice. In closing, I want to say one more thing. I know I've kind of had a theme, or I've attempted to make this a theme of the last few podcast episodes, which is, are we learning anything? Are we learning anything from history? Are we learning anything through historical context? I think we are making progress in a lot of areas. I truly do. But we're still spinning our wheels, maddeningly so, in areas that I am just shocked that we are still in the same spot than we have been since I've been alive. I mean, how are we still like this? People are still not willing, the mass majority of the time, to try to put themselves in other people's shoes. You should do that with any issue you may have with somebody. I may have an issue with somebody about vaccine mandates, or who's going to win the football game, or what to wear, or whatever. And if they truly say something to me that infuriates me instantly, what I would like to think I do is say, well, why am I getting so angry at this so immediately? Like, why? Surely that's a fault on me. I'm not an animal that's ready to lash out. This person isn't trying to attack me to, take away my life or something. They're just having a difference of an opinion. Why am I in such rage over that? So you need to do a little bit of self-searching. If someone says something that you disagree with, and your first reaction is, this fucking idiot, I have to murder them, or something like that, well, that's on you. I would like to think that I would be able to sit down with someone who has a opinion that I strongly disagree with, and that I could at least try to see it from their viewpoint. You get what I'm trying to say, people. In closing, like I say every week, I love y'all. Take it sleazy. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And yeah, just don't be so quick to judge. And in closing, I'm going to play you a Marianne Williamson clip. The following clip is Marianne Williamson on the Andrew Yang podcast while they were both debating the merits of a third party versus primary Joe Biden in 2024.
Political parties are not even mentioned in the Constitution. George Washington warned us against them in his farewell address. John Adams said that they represented the greatest threat to democracy. This idea that they get to be the gatekeepers they are, when in court the Democratic Party argued that they don't owe it to people to let the person who got the most votes win. We have to call the duopolistic system on what it is. And let's remember, the duopoly is actually a monopoly. You know, we talk about how divided we are. They are not all that divided. Because the bottom line is the military-industrial complex will get what they want. On that, we are not divided. Oil companies, more than not, will continue to do what they want to do. On that, we are not divided. Big pharmaceutical companies will continue to obstruct any chance of universal health care. On that, we are not divided. They divide us so that we don't recognize how undivided they are in some very essential ways.
Yeah, never mind the outgoing music there, but spot on. It's just another reason why I'm also becoming very high on Marianne Williamson. I thought she was a little bit of a loon to begin with when I first saw her, when she was newly released a couple of years ago during the primaries. But only because all I heard about her from the mainstream media for the most part was that she was a self-help guru author. So I thought, oh, she's got to be batshit crazy, but she obviously has a very good head on her shoulders. She's very empathetic, compassionate, and intelligent. We could use the likes of her in the government. But anyway, peace out, bitches.